Baptism Sunday, man. I just love it. It's what I live and breathe for. I just think it's amazing. Is Joe Burkhardt in the house? Our Pastor Joe, or is he down in Heritage just getting attacked? Joe was here. He's going to be on staff with us July 1st. Him and his family are here. So I was going to drag him up on stage to just share with you, but you have a chance to meet with him afterwards. I said at Heritage, hey, Joe's in the house, so they probably got a mile-long line. I don't know. But I got to tell you, there was a mile-long line of people coming up to reaffirm baptisms at Heritage. It was amazing. I mean, I was just, I guess being somewhere 21 years, you know the backstories. And I saw spouses coming forward that used to come together as spouses together. And they're just coming to the font saying, heaven and earth are close right now. They're close right now. My God, that's the power of Easter. That's the power of Easter. My son had a heart surgery when he was 16 years old. And, it was minor heart surgery. How many of you know there's no such thing as minor heart surgery? Like when it's your 16-year-old son, right? And Pastor Terry walked into that hospital that day, I'll never forget, and she put her hand on Perry, and she said, may the power that raised Jesus from the dead be in your body, man. And that's what I've experienced today. So I don't know what I was going to preach about. I might just sit up here and talk and dance and shout. I don't know. But praise God for that. Is that Joe? Joe, are you back there? Oh, come on, man. Come on up. Come on up. Welcome, Joe Burkhardt, man. This brother has the undefined courage to come hang out with us as of July 1 to be our executive and teaching pastor. So give it up. Say a word.
I am looking forward to meeting you all. My name is Joe. My family is all here. Hopefully you get a chance to meet them. Just basically look for blonde hair and blue eyes, and that's pretty much our kids. It has been a blessing to be here. I told Chip this before we found out that this was the direction stuff was going. I pastor churches, and over the last couple of years, we've really tried to model the churches we have in Akron after Garfield since 2019. And Chip and I have known each other much, much longer than that, but it was really in 2019. Garfield Memorial Church transformed really who I am in my ministry to step into the fullness of God's kingdom. God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven, where every nation, every tribe, every ethnicity, every language is gathered around God's throne forevermore. And why is that not happening here on earth? And so we started that work in Akron and really transformed a couple churches in that way. And so it's an honor to step into the congregation, the people who have been doing this work much, much longer. So I appreciate you all for living into the fullness of the faith, and for Terry and Chip and Terry McHugh and the many others that have been mentors for me. And it really is cool to be a part of what God is doing to change not only this church in this greater city, but to change our world. Amen. I'm grateful for you all. Anyway.
If you ever preach that good in this pulpit again, I'm not letting you back up. I'm just saying, I'm a little insecure. No, we're so excited that Joe and Jeanette and their family will be with us, and he's up here. They got a home. They're preparing to move in. So come out in the lobby today and share a greeting. So we're closing out this series we've had, 40 Days of Community. Better together. How many of you know we're better together? The world wants to tear us apart. Satan wants to tear us apart. But we're better together. I preached last week on Easter. In spite of our differences, there is something about this experience of the risen Christ coming into our life, acknowledging us. If you were here last week, I talked about how did Jesus minister to Mary? How did he minister to Thomas? How did he minister to John? How did he minister to Peter? It wasn't one universal prescription. It was dealing with them at the point of their need. Mary's emotional. She's like me. She's a yellow. He just called her name and hugged her. Thomas is Mr., empirical proof. Show me. And he ministered to him at that point. John is a thinker. Peter's an actor, right? And Jesus ministered. Jesus has a prescription just for you. When God said at the burning bush, when Moses said, hey, I need to tell Pharaoh who's calling me. I'm just preaching today, man. I'm not even looking at my notes. I'm just letting you know, Baptism Sunday gets me that way. When God spoke to Moses at the burning bush, and Moses said, well, I got to tell him who it is. He said, who shall I say sent you? He said, I am. I love that. Even in the Hebrew, it might be, it could be future imperative. I will be what I will be. It's almost he's saying, I'm a blank check. You fill in the blank. I'm what you need me to be when you need me to be it. Sometimes, and Jesus picked up on that. And you know how many I ams? Jesus said, I am the door. When you can't find a way out of the escape room, I'm the door. When you're lonely and you're broken and you're by yourself, I am the good shepherd. When you can't even figure out where you are on the GPS, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I just love that. Jesus just steps in. And for those of you, some of you may want to reaffirm your baptism today, be baptism. We have clothes, right? And we had a big service in November. We had, I think, a bunch of people baptized. Not quite as many today, but it doesn't matter. I was saying to myself, my God, we will stop the presses for one person. One person. You know what? Jesus ticked off all the religious people when he said, God is a good shepherd. He will leave the 99 just to go get one. He'll just be there where you need to be. And he's pursuing us. He's after us. I remember during COVID, we were all shut down, and we were just online and all this. And we had one of our security guards was here, and he just, they take care of us there. And he came up to me and Pastor Scott after and said, can I be baptized? We're like, next week, right? And we stopped the presses because God stops the presses for us. Now, this passage that they read for us today, my wife knows this. Yeah, like you guys have to hear me preach. My wife has to hear me prepare to preach. It's no fun. And I kept telling her all week, I don't want to preach on this. I don't want to preach on this. This is too heavy. This is too heavy. This is too heavy. And I said, but God won't let me out of it. Because the truth is, this message, if I do any justice to it, is about how do we deal with the difficulty of life. Life's rough, man. My sister went home to God from cancer when she was 44 years old. My nephews were 8 and 10 years old at the time. She was ready to meet Jesus, just didn't want to leave her family. But she said, I got to teach my boys something. Life is not fair. And just kept putting that into them. And to this day, they'll say to me, Uncle Chip, remember, life's not fair. It's not. Life is, it's not, rainbows and lollipops. Life is, we hear in this verse that they read, Paul said, let us run with perseverance, going to talk about that, this race that is set before us. The word race was literally a word called agnon. It's where we get our word agony. It wasn't a marathon. It was a pentathlon. The agnon was the last race in the Greek Olympics, which you didn't just run. You threw the discus, you threw the javelin, and at the end of it, you boxed. Now, not with those nice little cushy boxing gloves that we have now. They had like leather with metal on it that would like disfigure people. And that's why when the writer of Hebrews says, you have not resisted to the point of spilling your blood, if you heard what they read. Like, it's an agnon. It's a long journey, and we're all in it. And Hebrews is written, Hebrews, 1 Peter, Jude, they're written to people who are going through persecutions we've never had to experience for our faith. And they were dropping out of the race like flies. And the writer of Hebrews is saying, I want to teach you how to kind of face this agnon, this difficulty. And he said, well, Chip, that's really a great motivational sermon for Baptism Sunday. But the truth is, every time we do baptisms, and I tell my brother Aaron there and others, Pastor Terry and I say, this is going to be challenged. When you take a stand for God, when you say, hey, we're not perfect. I had a lay leader in my first church that said, Pastor, you can go in a dry devil and come out a wet one. It's not magical waters. But the truth is, if you read the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, every single one said when Jesus went in the waters of baptism, immediately, who showed up and challenged it, right, and tested it. And so the point is, it was like God was saying to me, okay, Chip, talk about the other side of the water. Because many of you are in that right now. Dwight Moody said, if you preach to people suffering, you'll preach to the whole world. And you will preach to people who are either suffering right now, who have been recently, or will be soon. That's the reality. It's this agnon, it's this journey. And I was thinking about running this race with perseverance. So Pastor Terry always helps me with research, and we kind of do these sermons together. I get credit for them. She probably writes most of them. But I found out the Guinness Book of World Records has a guy who ran the longest marathon in the history of the world. Longest marathon. He's from Japan. His name is Shijo Kakuni. There he is. He finished his marathon on March 20th, 1967. He was in the Olympics in Stockholm, Sweden in 1912, when Japan could only afford to send 2 athletes. He went. It took him 13 days, train rides, everything. He got sick. He was worn out. And he ran his marathon about halfway, passed out. A family in Sweden picked him up, took him into their house, ministered him back to health after 9 days. And he was so ashamed in that shame and honor culture that he snuck back to Japan and never told the authorities of Sweden he was gone. So for 50 years, they were looking for him. A missing Olympian. And finally, some media person found out he was back living in Japan. And so they invited him, would you like to come back and finish the race? And he joyfully did it. And that's him crossing the finish line on March 20th, 1967. And the Guinness Book of World Records said he ran a marathon that took 54 years, 8 months, 6 days, 5 hours, 32 minutes, and 20.3 seconds. And when they interviewed him, he said, it was a long trip. And he said, along the way, I got married. I had 6 children, 10 grandchildren, but I finished the race. That's what Paul says if you read his testimony. At the end, he said, I'm being poured out as a libation. Paul didn't have a lot to show for his ministry. He didn't have a church the size of Garfield. He had 10, 12 people meeting in homes. But he knew that he had been faithful. Mother Teresa was once asked, are you doing great things? She says, no, we're doing small things with great love. Paul said, I fought the good fight. I love that. He didn't say I fought every fight. I need somebody to preach that to me on Twitter, because Christian Twitter is hell. And I'm tempted to fight every fight. No, just fight the good fight. Finish the race. Paul didn't say he won it. I just finished. And I've kept my faith. Life is a race, man. This is a race. And I think sometimes we don't have the skill to run. I was thinking of my brother here, Shizo, who ran a 50-year marathon. And I compared him to, you know what the fastest land animal is? Oh, so you guys are smart, man. You watch Nat Geo. Yeah, it's a cheetah, right? Do you know cheetahs can go from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 3 seconds? And they can top out at 70. I heard 7. Carl says 75. He's a preacher like I am. Just add 5 miles an hour. But they're amazing. But because actually their heart and some of their organs are enlarged, they can't run very fast for very far. In fact, they say if a cheetah doesn't catch its prey within 10 or 15 seconds, it just gives up. And I thought to myself, am I more like this brother, or am I more like this brother? Well, I don't trust me with the clicker. Am I really good out the gates, but I really don't run with perseverance? Or could I say, I come out of the water of baptism 50 years, 6 months, you know what I mean? That's a calling, right? And the book of Hebrews says, let us run with perseverance. We are so ill-equipped for this race in today's society. Nobody has ever been more privileged or more pampered than we are in the 21st century. We just are. I read an article, I went back and looked at again, by a guy named Thomas Lynch. Thomas Lynch is an undertaker and he's a writer. And he owns a funeral home and he's a writer. And he wrote an op-ed back in the New York Times in 2005 when Pope John Paul II died. And I went back and looked at it after this wonderful Pope Francis went home to be with God. And he talked about Americans, we don't have the equipment to run this kind of race. We have the equipment to run that kind of race. And here's what he wrote. He says, as an undertaker, he said, this wheel is not just broken in America, it's off track. He said, the loosened ties of faith and family, of religious and ethnic identity, have left people ritually adrift, bereft of custom, bereft of symbol, metaphor, and meaningful liturgy or language. Times formerly spent in worship and communion are now spent web browsing. Think about that. Many Americans are now spiritual tourists without a home place or core beliefs to return to in time of grief. Instead of dead Methodists or Muslims, he wrote, we are now dead golfers or gardeners or bikers or bowlers. The bereaved are not so much family and friends or fellow believers as they are like-minded hobbyists and enthusiasts. And I have become less a funeral director and more a memorial caddy of sorts, getting the living assembled for a memorial event that is neither sacred nor secular, but increasingly absurd. A triumph of accessories over essentials, of theme over theology. We leave these events with the increasing sense that something is missing. And you know what he said? Something is. We don't have the equipment anymore to run this race. So I just want to say to you, life is a race. I want to talk about why we run it and how we run it, okay? And then we'll go to the waters. Life is a race. Let us run the race that is set before us. In some translations say they're marked out before us. You know why? This is not a race for a few. This isn't a race for like marathoners. This isn't a race for trained people. There is a race that is marked for all of us. And all of us are in this race. It's marked out. And it's this word, agone, as I said, right? And it's difficult. It has its trials. It's not fair. And that's why it says, now discipline always seems painful rather than pleasant at the time, but later it yields a peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. That word trained is the word gymnasio in the Greek, which is where we get our term gymnasium. Like, we're in training. It's not that God brings this on us. It's that, how's the best way I can tell you this? When I was a teenager, I was going through hell and high water in my life, and I was persecuted by Christians. How many of you know Christians are not the best counselors? Church people are not the best counselors sometimes. And when I was going through hell at 17, I was thinking of taking my life and the whole deal, going through stuff. And I had people, they would always stick Romans 8:28 in my nose. All things work together for good, for they that love the Lord. It's God's will. Just deal with it. Really, really helpful. when you're suicidal in 17. Just really helpful, right? I had to go to seminary to find out that is not what Romans 8:28 says. It does not say all things work together for good for they who love the Lord. You know what it says? It says in all things. God is working for good on behalf of those who love him. It doesn't say all things, God, no, in all things, meaning God didn't break the world, we did. God did not create a world with evil and suffering and death. Read the creation stories. God didn't do that. That's why when Jesus, I feel like preaching a little bit. When Jesus showed up at the graveside of Lazarus, his boy, his buddy, his BFF, it said he didn't go there going, well, all things work together for good. He went raging. The word there in the Greek is he was snorting and roaring like an animal. He was angry at death. And he went there knowing in 60 seconds he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. But he went and got on his knees and wept. You know why? Because if it matters to you, it matters to God. And Jesus weeps with us. I love that passage. Everybody says, it's the shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus wept. It may be the shortest verse, but it may have the most impact in my life. Because God cares enough about me to get down on his knees and weep with me. Cry with me. God wouldn't have given us tear ducts if we weren't supposed to use them. And Jesus wept. Jesus hurt, right? He was bellowing. He was angry. This wasn't but in all things. In all the mess that I brought on myself. In all my stupid decisions. In all of my foolishness, in all of my exaggeration in lives, God has not given up on me. And he said, Chip, you are a broken person. But while we were yet sinners, Christ died. Who am I preaching to today? Who is stuck in the middle of something? You've been beating yourself up on it, and God said, I forgot it, right? What did the band say? Forgive and forget. He has thrown our sins into the depths of the sea. I remember there was a Catholic woman, I'm thinking of our Catholic brothers and sister today, but she would go to confession, and she actually wasn't going to confession, and the priest got all mad at her. Why aren't you going to confession? She said, well, every time I go to God to confess my sins, he said, what are you here talking to me about? I forgot all those. God is so much more grace-based with us than we are for ourselves. I will say this to you. If I have helped you at all in 21 years here, some of you have had me a year, some of you have had me 21, God bless you. I didn't think anybody put up with me 21 years other than my wife. Some of you, someone say, yeah, I did. It's a cross I have to bear, But, in the midst of that, I think if I've been ever helpful to you, it's not because I went to good schools and got good grades. And I did. I just want to go on record. Pastor Terry McHugh is the smartest person on staff. Just laughed at that hilariously. Okay, I went to kind of good schools and got kind of good grades.
You were right. You did go to good schools and you did get good grades.
Yeah. All right, I'll see y'all next week. The point is, if I've had any effectiveness to you, you know it's because of my trauma. Because of my pain. I coach these young pastors, and somebody one time was at a conference, and somebody who knows me really well, who's traveled with me, said, Chip, I just wish I could do what you do. And somebody said, be careful. Be careful. Because I know what happened. We were serving a church, my wife and I, in a historically underserved community, and kids were coming out of gangs. We had kids coming out of gangs. They would take pistols out of their back waistband and put them on the altar. There was just stuff happening. It was like water to wine. It was my favorite ministry. We were in there. And so the Methodist Church sent all these bishops in to examine us. What's happening? they're with this denomination, we don't do good in urban ministry. And all these people are coming with Chip and Terry Freed, and this youth are having these transformations. And my chaplain, who had brought me to Christ from Colgate University, he was in town, and he was running this thing for the Ivy League, and he's just very quiet. And they're taking notes. Oh, you did this, and you did that, and you did this. And they looked at Coleman Brown, Dr. Brown, and Bishop Bolton said to him, he said, well, Dr. Brown, we know you know a lot of things. What do you think that your student is doing here? What do you think we should emulate? He said, well, I'll tell you this. You can do everything that they're doing here, and if the person leading it didn't go through what Chip Freed went through when he was 17 years old, it ain't going to work. See, the power of what's happened in our lives, his strength is made powerful in our weakness, right? He grows us up in the ash heaps of adversity. I wish it didn't work that way. I'd rather be the dumbest person that ever lived than to have to go through what it takes to bring us to maturity. And that's why I really love, I don't know where I'm at here, but I really love this word, discipline. We always think that, oh, God's disciplining you. Oh, God's disciplining you. When we say discipline, what do we think it means? Punishment. Doesn't mean that. The Greek word is paeda. It's where we get our word pediatrics. What does a pediatrician do? Does a pediatrician discipline a child? No. A pediatrician's goal is to bring that child to wellness and flourishing. So I want you to never read God disciplines you. God paedas you. God is a parent. And he's paeding you. I paeded my kids. And I'm a human parent, which means I am less than a perfect parent. Because I would discipline my kids. Guess what? My motivations were always messed up. Because I'm disciplining, like they're lying. You're lying. Did you lie to me? Yes. Okay, you can't go to Jimmy's party. Well, shut the door. Good, I'll never lie again. Good, shut the door. But in the midst of that, sometimes I was like angry. You lied to me? I felt disrespected. Do you know your Father in heaven never feels disrespected? He's not as emotional as Chip Freed. He's not up some days and down the next. The Bible says God is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. The word hesed is a love that goes the distance. He's not freaking out because you got an attitude. He can be asleep in the back of the boat. And Lord, don't you care? Oh, okay. Peace. Be still. God is not as unstable as your parents. I apologize for all parents out there. We do the best that we can. But that's why God, it says in that passage, we had human parents that disciplined us. They disciplined us for a short time, paeded us, as seemed best to them. But God paedas us for our good. God is in all things working for good in order that we may share his holiness. That's what God is doing with us. That's what God is growing us up, right? That's where God has our flourishing. Best example I can use of this, I only got 3 minutes left. See, if I just rant up here, the time goes. And then I go, oh, I don't have to be brilliant. Time up. Think about Joseph in the Bible. It's my favorite one. Joseph. If you know Joseph, the son of Jacob and Rachel. Jacob poisoned the whole family because he loved Rachel more than Leah. Leah bore 10 children, Rachel bore 2, but he loved her more. He made an idol out of Rachel. So when Rachel died, guess what he did? He made an idol out of Joseph. And it was his favorite child. And he spoiled him. He lifted him up. So if you read the early stories of Joseph, he would go out to his brothers and go, hey guys, you're going to be bowing down to me someday. He was on his way to being a terrible person. He was on his way to be a narcissist. He was on his way to become a liar. He was on his way to be miserable. And God worked through the brokenness of his brothers who envied Joseph, who hated Joseph, who were angry with Joseph and sold him into slavery. He worked through Potiphar's wife, who was lustful and lying. And God didn't bring it, but he worked through it when Joseph went into prison. And what happened? Joseph grew to be a great man. He grew to be a person who had a heart, who understood himself, and who cared about others, and who ended up, rescuing his own family and forgiving his brothers. Because why? Because he saw his own brokenness. He saw what he was on the way to becoming. And when he forgave his brothers, you remember what he said? You meant it for evil. God used it for good. God was in all things, working for good. This is what we have to trust, friends, that God is in these things and working for us. I got a lot more sermon, but I'm going to let go. I got good stories in here, but now my thing aren't working. Okay, I'm trying to go ahead. Oh, that's the one I want. Okay, so how do we run this race? How do we run it? 3 practices, okay? Just going to flash it at you, and we're going to get to the pool. 3 practices, 1 perspective. 3 practices. When you're going through it, practice humility. When God said, when the Hebrew says, God is a parent, pietying a child. We need to understand we're children, right? What did Paul say? I look in a mirror. I don't get it yet. I'm growing. God is growing me up. I'm not quite there yet, right? The Bible never says for us to be childish, but it tells us to be childlike. Unless you turn and become like a child, you will never get it. So be humble when we're going through things. Just be realizing, I don't understand this. And, go through it. The second thing is practice humility, practice endurance. What does it say? Endure your trials for the sake of what God is doing in you. Endurance, the word is hypermone in the Greek. It means to hyperstand. So when you're in the midst of it, stand. You don't have to go forward, just don't go back. If you can't stand, sit. If you can't sit, crawl. But just say, God, what did Paul say? Forgetting those things that lie behind. I'm pushing forward. I may not be going forward, but I'm not going back. Don't go down in your prayers. Don't go down in your giving. Don't go down in your attitude. Don't go down in your eating, your sleeping. Stand. Hang in there. My dad bought a boat when he bought his company, and he wanted me to know how to drive a boat. He didn't want me to be one of those kids that drive into docks, and so he made me go through Power Squadron. When I was 12 years old, I'm out on Lake Erie. How many know Lake Erie is a dangerous lake? It is. You know why it's the most dangerous lake of the Great Lakes? Because it's so shallow. And when the wind and storms come in, it kicks up. It takes a while for Superior and Huron to get 10-foot waves. Lake Erie, that can happen in 30 minutes. And I was out there with this old salt captain going through Power Squadron. I was 13 years old. And the wind kicked up, and we're in a small craft advisory, and there's 8 to 10 footers. And I'm like, you're the captain, take the wheel. No, you got it. And I remember I was driving that boat, and I was scared to death. And he kept saying to me, don't let go of the wheel. Because if I let go of the wheel, what happens? Right? Don't let go of the wheel when you're in the storm. Hang in there. There's one foot in front of the other. That's what Isaiah said, they who wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. They will mount up wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. What does that mean? Sometimes the miraculous will happen. You'll sail like an eagle. Sometimes you'll be able to run down the block. And sometimes you just put one foot in front of the other and walk and not faint and hang in there and hold on to the wheel. So practice humility. Practice endurance. Practice self-evaluation. God, what are you teaching me? What am I learning through this? My spiritual mentor I talk about so much, when I was going through hell and I was out of college, I would call him because I was so afraid without him around. And I'd call him, I'd tell him the stuff I'm going through. And he was so compassionate. He was so caring. But you know what he'd say to me? Don't you become the problem. So he was saying, evaluate. You got a lot of reasons to go beat somebody up. You're from Youngstown. I know that's how you all roll. But don't you become the problem. And I'm going to tell you, He coached me on that so long where I didn't become the problem, even though I wanted to be. And it was at that point, like a year later, my wife walked into my life. I'm glad I held onto that wheel. I'm glad I hung in there. So practice humility, practice endurance, practice self-evaluation. But then this perspective, this is the gas. All I gave you was techniques. This is the gas for the engine. The perspective is fix your eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and the perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down so calmly at the right hand of God. That's the throne. That's the decision making. Consider him who endured such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or lose heart. You know, what was the joy that was set before Jesus? I always ask myself that. The joy that's set before me to hang in there is I want God's glory and greatness and holiness to flow in my life. Jesus had all that. He had all the glory and greatness of God. What didn't he have? He didn't have us. And he hung in there, and he suffered for us. And all I hear him saying to me sometimes is, Chip, I suffered through this for you. When you are suffering through it, just hold on to me. Fix your eyes on me. Know that I am with you, and I will not leave you or forsake you. Isaiah said the suffering servant looked at the result of his suffering, and he was satisfied. He looked at me and was satisfied because I just hung in there long enough to be with him. I'm going to close, and then we'll go to the pool. This quote just tore my heart out today. Okay. Wait, yeah. Don't trust me with a clicker. Oh, I don't know what's happening. I'm trying to go back. Help me, Dave. Help me, tech team. My last screen. It's done? Not that one. There it is. Oh. Did I hear him say stop clicking? I know. God isn't at work producing the circumstances I want. I know prosperity preachers don't like that verse. God isn't at work producing the circumstances I want. God is at work in the circumstances, producing the me he wants. I'm going to tell you when my prayer life changed. I used to always pray to God, change my circumstances. Change my circumstances. One day when I got mature enough, I said, God, change me to fit my circumstances, to hold the wheel, to hang in there. And I hope you'll pray that too. And that way we can be better together, holding on to one another, and even go into the baptismal pool, but come out of it with a fighting chance. Amen? I've talked too much. Y'all good?